4 score and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that this nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But, in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, and we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln, November 19th, 1863, 158 years ago today. What is going on, everybody? My name is Logan, and welcome back to the Conservation Project, the podcast for the average Joe that still believes in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that we are still one nation under God. I'm happy for this episode. I am so looking forward to this one because, well, for a couple reasons. For the last several days, I have devoted some pretty lengthy amounts of time to preparing some new stuff for the podcast. And not just for the podcast itself, but for the Conservation Project as a whole. Now, you know, the podcast is the main thing for me. But I have taken some time to develop the social media aspects. We now even have a website. So now in the description, instead of seeing links to the social media, you're going to see one link to the website. And the website is going to give you all the information that you need if you've never seen the podcast, you've never heard the podcast, whatever it may be. And it's also going to give you links to all the socials. We have new stuff. We now have a Facebook page. We even have like a PayPal for the website and all sorts of stuff. We even now have a 4-tiered Patreon, and that includes merchandise. We now have a top tier Patreon that if you do that one every quarter, you get a new piece of Conservation Project merch, and it's actually very, very cool. It is not by any means necessary. If you want to support, amazing. You know, it is greatly appreciated. It helps, you know, the operational costs of doing all of this. But it is by no means a requirement. But either way, the website looks great. The socials are starting to get there. I'm just excited all the way around. We are on more places now. We're even on TuneIn now. So yeah, that's pretty much all of the preamble I'm gonna give. But go check out the website. It's very neat. And go check out the Patreon. It's really, really cool. So we are going to get into some interesting topics today. We're going to start with Kamala Harris because as of this morning, this article has come out. Top Kamala Harris aide resigns as the VP's polling tanks. So, if you have not heard, Harris is now at a 28% approval rating. And that's just 10 points behind Joe Biden's at 38%. So the communications director for Kamala Harris has handed in her resignation as the VP takes a nosedive in approval ratings, and rumors swirl about an apparent rift with President Joe Biden. Now, this really, if we're being honest here, this wouldn't be that surprising given the stuff that's coming out recently with the whole "he's a racist" argument that you keep hearing from, for some reason, you keep hearing from the mainstream media. Why that is, I don't know. I genuinely do not understand what's going on here. But apparently this is becoming a thing. And Ashley Etienne, which is the communications director, she resigned yesterday. And the Washington Examiner reported, adding, Etienne's last day will be next month as the office opens for a new official to take the role. A White House official issued a diplomatic statement in the wake of the news, calling the outgoing comms director a, quote, valued member of the team, saying, quote, Ashley is a valued member of the vice president's team who has worked tirelessly to advance the goals of this administration. She is leaving the office in December to pursue other opportunities. This is a little odd to me. So here's what I don't get. So, as we all know, the race aspect has been a major part of, of this administration from even before it was an administration. I mean, if we're gonna call a spade here, like let's be honest. Joe Biden picked Kamala Harris because she was a black woman, and this isn't earth-shattering news. Those words came out of his mouth. He wanted to pick a black woman to be his vice president. And this comes right off the heels of her consistently calling him a old racist and white supremacist. Like, she threw the book at him in early. There's a reason that she dropped out of the presidential race extraordinarily. Well, actually, she was the first one, if I recall. Yeah, she was the first one that actually dropped out of the presidential campaign. So, what really were you expecting? This is a dysfunctional household. It is what it is. I mean, So Joseph Curl with the Daily Wire reported Monday in regards to the approval rating, which, by the way, USA Today and Suffolk University is where that poll is coming from, of the 28 and 38%. So this report said Vice President Kamala Harris has plunged to 28% approval rating in one recent poll, and President Joe Biden is apparently not too happy. One report says she's not even considered to be Biden's successor in the White House anymore, while another says the president is considering moving her to the Supreme Court so he can pick a new VP who may have a chance to win in 2024. Yet another report says the two top elected officials in the country are at war, prompting desperate Harris aides to defend their bosses, slamming the media for, quote, gossip. Wow. We've really come full circle, haven't we? We're officially at the point where the bolstering mainstream media of the left, which is, let's be honest, it's nothing more than a propaganda wing for the left, is now turning in on itself. Anyways, Joseph Curl noted that the VP has, quote, pulled the most impressive disappearing act since the Great Houdini. AWOL on the southern border crisis, dispatched to Paris for meaningless talks. She also gushed about some pans and skillets she bought on a shopping spree in an embarrassing photo op. That is, that is tough. Okay, so the Daily Mail reported Joe Biden's relationship with Kamala Harris is in crisis, with her staff furious that she's being, quote, sidelined, while the president's team are increasingly frustrated by how she's playing with the American public. Yeah. Shocker. Harris's approval rating has plunged even further than Biden's in the recent months, with rumors swirling that the president is considering appointing her to the Supreme Court as a backdoor method of selecting a new vice president. CNN even said many current and former West Wing aides say that VP Kamala Harris is not being adequately prepared or positioned, but instead is being sidelined, causing further frustration among staffers. And, of course, Jen Psaki had to get in on the action. Honestly, I have gotten to the point where I don't take anything that she says seriously. Now, I can't wait to be labeled a sexist for that. I don't give a rip if she's an alien with, purple skin and yellow polka dots. The woman she's just not smart. She's not an intelligent person for the role that she fits. And I'm not trying to openly bash her, but she has to put her 2 cents in on everything. And I'm sorry, you're a mouthpiece for POTUS. Not you. Your broad opinions are not the position that you hold. And, of course, because of this, she's having to save face. Because when she actually does choose to be the mouthpiece of the president, she gets lambasted for it because the president is kind of just a senile old man. So she threw this in. Put this out on Twitter. Right now, it is at 63,000 likes with 26,000 comments. And she said, for anyone who needs to hear it, the Vice President is not only a vital partner to POTUS, but a bold leader who has taken on key, important challenges facing the country, from voting rights to expanding root causes of migration to expanding broadband. Okay, hold on. That's hilarious. Oh, man. Oh man, it's early. I have not had all my coffee, and that is too funny. Oh man, isn't that indicative of where we're at, or at least of where our executive branch is at? Key important challenges facing the country, from voting rights to addressing root causes of migration to expanding broadband. This woman has done so little that the only thing that you can bring to her name publicly is facing voting rights and causes of migration, neither of which she's actually made any legitimate progress on anything other than a social scale. And what I mean by that is she has done nothing more than rant and rave on Twitter and call everybody racist and everybody white supremacist. You can cut this however you want it, but the bottom line is the vice president right now is one of the most divisive people in the nation. And Joe Biden's pretty freaking bad. But Kamala Harris has pushed this white supremacist race baiting to levels that would make Al Sharpton cringe. And the fact that the only third thing that you can tag onto her name is expanding broadband, really, I'm gonna see if I can find this. Broadband expansion. I'm having to use a new computer or a different computer because my laptop died. Let's see. What's new in the civic tech? I just want to know. I want to know from a large scale point of view how much this broadband expansion is actually doing for. Okay, so here we go. So Biden apparently had asked the vice president to connect Americans with high-speed internet. This is coming from govtech.com, this article that I'm reading. And this is very off the cuff. Typically I have things prepared, but I want to know, why is broadband one of the only things that we can tack on to Kamala Harris's achievements? And as it turns out, I had heard this before, and this is just reaffirming what I had read before, because I wanted to make sure I wasn't just speaking out of the side of my mouth. So, Biden stressed the importance of the country having reliable broadband infrastructure, as well as making sure people are able to access it, saying, quote, "It creates jobs connecting every American with high-speed internet including 35% of rural America that still doesn't have it. It's going to help our kids and our businesses succeed in the 21st century economy, and I'm asking the Vice President to lead this effort if she would, because I know it'll get done. So, man, this 100% thing that this administration keeps bringing up, this is amazing to me. So apparently this was part of her initial presidential race. And she proposed an $80 billion investment in broadband with a goal of connecting 100% of the country by 2024. And Biden's proclamation also comes after broadband was included in the administration's $2.3 trillion infrastructure proposal, which put $100 billion into broadband expansion. Wow, that is something else. $100 billion, and Harris didn't even do it. But she spoke about it, so that's what she gets to her name. Unbelievable. Let's move on. So this one is sure to get you fired up. So this is coming from Paso Robles in California. Shocker. I don't even know why I'm surprised it's coming out of California. So, quote, "Go jump off a bridge. California teacher sneers at high school conservative students after an anti-Biden sign." After an apparent student from a conservative club at a California high school waved an anti-Biden flag emblazoned with F. Joe Biden, censored, during a pre-Veterans Day rally, an elementary school teacher in the same school district posted an Instagram message telling the entire club that they could go, quote, jump off a bridge. Kristen Usilton, who's a 38-year-old teacher at Glen Speck Elementary School in Paso Robles, California, posted a video of the students from what appeared to be a classroom, saying, according to the Paso Robles Press, the Paso Robles Conservative Club for the high school, you can go jump off a bridge. I'm going to post what they thought was a great show of support for the veterans, who I'm pretty sure would have been absolutely offended by what they did on the school campus. And had the LGBTQ population done that, or the black or the Hispanic community members, we would have had our ass chewed out. Look at what they did today. Usilton later posted another video which she attempted to clarify what she had said, but still asserted that anyone who took umbrage at her initial comments was, quote, kind of part of the problem. When I said go jump off a bridge, I meant go away, and I will not use that term again because of the incredible influx of messages I got about that. If that's what you're focused on in the message, you're kind of part of the problem. Okay, time out. We're just going to say quick little 15-second thing here. Okay, that right there, if that's what you focused on in that message, you're kind of part of the problem. There's the left in a nutshell. I said you should go kill yourself. But if that's what you focused on, you're part of the problem. It's never their fault. Keep in mind, every time you get into conversations with people who their worldview is the same as this, you're going to have to realize that you have to be prepared to face this exact thing. Just keep that in mind. What's this podcast all about? The conservation of Christian conservative values for the average Joe. And as the average Joe, you're going to talk to other average Joes. Like, that's the bottom line. And it takes all kinds to make the world go round. There's people that actually believe this. You're going to have to understand that this same thing is going to happen to you at some point. I know it's happened to me. It's happened to me very frequently. Not just in person, social media. You're going to see it constantly. And if you choose to speak out, which you should, be prepared, because it's going to happen. Moving on. The school district superintendent, Kurt DuBost, of the Paso Robles Joint Unified School District, released a statement saying, quote, last Wednesday, a student effort to honor Veterans Day was disrupted by a very poor choice to include a profane flag. This both distracted from the intended purpose of the demonstration and led to considerable disruption, including some postings and exchanges on social media that were completely inappropriate. The objectionable flag was up for a very limited amount of time. However, we in no way condone nor excuse this misguided action. Students will be appropriately disciplined in accordance with district policies. Later that day, a district employee posted comments on social media regarding this event, which were inappropriate, and the district is responding accordingly through the Human Resources Office. That should be fun. The district will make it clear to all employees that as an employee of PRJUSD, wow, that is a mouthful, social media is not the appropriate venue for criticism of our students and families, that we must conduct ourselves in a professional manner. The community is entrusting their children to our schools and employees. With this stated, we want to emphasize that the district does not tolerate threats on our employees or students, nor do we condone cyberbullying. The district will expand its efforts to hold joint activities which promote tolerance and unity. Veterans Day should be a day for patriotism and honoring service, not yet another politically divisive controversy. We call on the school community to come together as Roblins and Bearcats. Man, there's just so much to unpack from that. One thing I would like to know, and I have yet to be able to find this, is that this kid who had this, we'll say, "Let's Go Brandon" flag, it doesn't say how old he was. It doesn't say whether he was in high school, or I'm sorry, whether he was freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. It doesn't say any of that, and I assume it's to protect, the identity, yada yada. That's fine. But I would really like to know, because if this kid's a senior, I mean, he's 18. You don't have. I just don't get it. Like, on one sense, I understand that the school district's probably got rules of speech and all this kind of thing, but this is not my area of expertise. And I guess doing it on campus would be, profane, but it's public school, and more importantly, this is a California public school. As much as teenagers cuss, why are we not concerned about the everyday bullying? Why are we not concerned about the amount of drugs that go through the public school system? I'm sorry, I don't understand why this kid is being lambasted for being a teenager. Who cares? I'm sorry, who cares? When I can't for the life of me understand. This is the most California garbage I've ever heard. The fact that this teacher told a group of high school students to go jump off a bridge, insinuating that they go kill themselves, and she gets a slap on the wrist and gets, 2 sentences in this friggin' novel they wrote about what the district. I don't understand why this is just so indicative of our education system as a whole, but it's extraordinarily indicative of the California state of mind and school district. This is pathetic to me. I mean, this gets me all hotted up. I cannot for the life of me understand how they do not have the cognitive awareness to realize what they're doing. It's a friggin' kid. So the kid was being a jerk. Leave him alone. Hey, you're better than that. Stop doing that. That's a whole lot different than saying to Kristen Usilton, a 38-year-old woman who told a group of kids that she disagrees with politically to go kill themselves. Again, the left, this is what they do. They can avoid the slaps on the wrist, and they can get away with telling kids to go kill themselves. But if this kid has a "Let's Go Brandon" flag, his head is put on a pike. Again, this is what you have to expect to deal with, which means you have to be the smarter side of the argument. You have to handle this in a much more diplomatic and factual way, because the bottom line is when you're talking to somebody like a teacher like this, if you are talking to somebody who is acting entirely out of emotion, you have to combat that with pure fact. That's it. Because what's going to happen if you combat everything they're saying with actual facts? You're going to have an outcome of 2 different things. You're going to piss them off. Their emotions are going to spiral, and they're not going to be able to argue it. And 2, they're going to stammer, try to argue it with emotion, and they're not going to have anything to back it up. And if you're actually arguing facts, everything that you say can be proven. Be the smarter side of things. It's a debate. Look at this stuff as debates and not arguments, and you'll change the world. I'm telling you. Never respond out of emotion. You get absolutely nowhere. This article is absolute proof of it. It is. Moving on. We're going to talk about the OSHA suspension, whatever they called it. They're staying the mandate, the vaccine mandate. I'm sick of COVID. I'm sick of vaccine. I'm sick of talking about all of this. I mean, like literally all of this. I don't care. This pandemic is over. If you've gotten the vaccine, you have gotten the vaccine. Congratulations. If you have not, you've made your decision. Why? Because you're an adult and you can make your own decisions. That's it. Congratulations. Pandemic is over. You've done it. This whole 100% thing coming out of the side of Joe Biden's mouth is ridiculous. So, moving forward, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, announced Wednesday morning that it had temporarily stayed its vaccine mandate for employers of over 100 employees. To date, more than 30 lawsuits have been filed across the country, including the Daily Wire. Now, I'm pulling this from the Daily Wire, and there is an actual reason why I'm taking this specific one from the Daily Wire. And it'll become more evident as we go on. So, the move from the Biden administration comes after the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, based in New Orleans, ordered a stay on the mandate 2 days after it was published. In a terse statement, the court wrote that the OSHA mandate had grave constitutional implications and that the enforcement should wait until proper litigation could take place. As the federal courts decided Tuesday by a rarely used lottery system, further litigation was consolidated into the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, where Daily Wire was the first to file a legal challenge to the OSHA mandate. That's why I wanted to discuss it from Daily Wire's article. It allows for one court to hear the general grievances laid out by several lawsuits of the same nature. The quote-unquote lottery method usually involves product liability and antitrust cases. In this case, the Sixth Circuit won the lottery. Daily Wire, as the first to file in the Sixth Circuit, is currently being considered the lead plaintiff. The arguments of the Daily Wire's lawsuit, echoed by many of the other cases filed, maintain that the basis for OSHA's order is unconstitutional on several considerations. First and foremost, the vaccine mandates are traditionally reserved for the states. It has never been in the federal government's jurisdiction to implement sweeping mandatory vaccine regulations. Second, if it were in their power, as with most items in the U.S. law, Congress would have had to delegate that power to OSHA through legislation. Lastly, in OSHA's original publication, they maintain that the order is, quote, an emergency rule. In other words, that they believe that they could temporarily, in the event of an emergency, have the power to mandate vaccines without going through the normal rulemaking process, which considers public comments. There are two reasons the emergency justification falters in the light of COVID-19. One, historically, such as quote-unquote emergency mandates are more narrow and could never entail sweeping economic and legislative implications. Two, with a waning pandemic and several therapeutics or alternative methods of treatment for COVID-19 available, with the rule delaying its own enforcement for 2 months, the asserted emergency nature of the rule is unclear. And they're absolutely right. It's not an emergency if you delay 2 months. It's not an emergency if you find ways to delay things to make this a completely political argument. In an additional argument put forth, let me rephrase that. An additional argument was put forth that the mandate changes the relationship between OSHA and the employees it was founded to protect. The regulatory agency primarily exists to protect workers from externalities, toxic substances, employer negligence, etc. In the published mandate, the agency treats the workers themselves as toxic substances, which could, in their view, harm other workers. Such changes in the eyes of those suing over the mandate, again, are overly broad and difficult to regulate. They only further the support of the argument that OSHA overstepped its bounds in ordering employers to require vaccination. This is extremely, extremely important because everybody's saying, oh, the OSHA has stayed its policy. You need to know why. because a lot of people, a lot of just regular workers are having to deal with this right now. But you need to know why this is being challenged and on what grounds it's being challenged. Furthermore, the Biden administration has not yet filed for any motion to lift the order for a stay on the mandate. Although they have publicly, contrary to the Fifth Circuit's temporary orders, told employers to keep preparing for an execution of the rule, and it's reasonable to assume that they will file for a motion soon. With this unusual circuit lottery procedure well underway, the OSHA vaccine mandate's legality is likely to be decided soon. The Fifth Circuit was unusually quick in its order. The Daily Wire and others have moved in the Sixth Circuit to have the entire court hear these cases, bypassing the normal 3-judge panel process in order to get a definitive ruling from the Sixth Circuit, and litigation would most likely continue to the Supreme Court, appealed by whichever side loses. As of now, employers, if they aren't healthcare or government contractors, are no longer required by the federal government to mandate employee vaccination. This is so important. You can't just look at this stuff as face value. Yes, it's great that this is happening. It's great that we have this stay, but keep in mind the executive branch still has its say. You have to understand the ins and the outs of both sides of this. This is never a one-way sweeping thing. It never is. The good Lord knows it is never that way in politics. That is the sad part of it. So our last topic we're going to be discussing is on this same vein, because it's more things that you need to know. OSHA apparently is poised to expand employer vaccine mandate to smaller businesses. So bear with me. Even though the Biden administration announced Wednesday that it's temporarily suspending the Occupational Safety and Health Administration's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for private employers of 100 people or more, there are documents from the administration to show that OSHA is considering expanding the mandate to smaller businesses, requiring fully vaccinated people to wear masks in the workplace, and mandate that people who have natural immunity after recovering from COVID-19 receive the vaccination anyway. OSHA released the official text of its Emergency Temporary Standard, the ETS, earlier this month and opened the public comment period on November 5th. Federal regulatory bodies customarily invite the public to comment on new rules for 30 days or more after a rule is published, but the specific feedback the administration asked employers to provide shows that the federal regulators intended to expand the controversial rule much further. The federal document states, in particular, OSHA seeks comments on the following topics. The first people OSHA wanted to hear from are, quote, employers with fewer than 100 employees. The document states openly, quote, the agency is moving in a stepwise fashion on the short timeline necessitated by the danger presented by COVID-19 while soliciting stakeholder comment and additional information to determine whether to adjust the scope of the ETS to address smaller employers in the future. OSHA seeks information about the ability of employers with fewer than 100 employees to implement COVID-19 vaccination and or testing programs. And later, the document makes it clear that the OSHA regulators are considering requiring face masks for the fully vaccinated people and vaccinations for people with natural immunity. The document asks, quote, how should the scope of the rule change to address the significant risk posed by COVID-19 in the workplace? Should portions of the rule, such as face coverings, apply to fully vaccinated persons? Furthermore, while OSHA admits that the extent to which, quote, workers who have been infected with COVID-19 have not been fully vaccinated still face a grave danger from the workplace exposure to SARS-CoV-2 in an area of ongoing scientific inquiry, OSHA cites this uncertainty to demand the vaccination of those who have recovered and may still have high levels of antibodies. Quote, given scientific uncertainty with limitations in testing for infection and immunity, OSHA is concerned that it would be infeasible for employers to operationalize a standard that would permit or require an exception from vaccination or testing and face covering based on prior infections with COVID-19. And it said that in the document with added emphasis. OSHA may be gauging the degree to which employers would support additional federal regulations. As the rule asks about current company policy as well as any, quote, controls that you have attempted to employ but found ineffective or infeasible. Make no mistake, they're weeding this out. They're going to figure it out the way to completely nail this down. You thought what was coming before was bad. If this goes through, you're going to have not only is it going to be a broad sweeping act, but the details of that broad sweeping act are going to be many, and they're going to be aggressive. They're going to be very specific. They're going to narrow down on every single piece that they can find, and they're going to hit you with it. I'm not trying to say this is a scare tactic, but you need to understand that what we saw before could be going even further. The existing mandate requires employers who employ 100 workers or more to require all employees to receive the vaccination or to submit regular testing and wear a face covering. OSHA will fine employers $13,653 per violation and $136,532 for, quote, willful or repeated violations. This is where you can get involved. Readers may submit comments about this rule to the Biden administration by December 6th by visiting the regulations.gov website. Now, I'm going to stop right here because I need to make something very, very, very clear. I have always talked about speaking out, standing for what you believe in. In the description of this episode, the very first thing that you are going to see on everything is the link to regulations.gov, and it is going to take you directly to the comments section. And in the top left, you're going to see COVID-19 vaccination and testing and emergency temporary standard, posted by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration on November 4th, 2021. And there's a big blue button that says comment. I have it pulled up as I sit here speaking to you. Go. We talk about action. This is action. This is where the average Joe gets involved. Go do it. This is important. Even if you stand for it, stand for what you believe. But go make a difference. This is part of that affirmative action that we can actually do. This is tangible. You click on it, you do it. You can do it from your phone. This is important. Carrying on, the website notes that it posts all comments verbatim, so commenters should avoid posting personal information. All submissions must include the agency's name and the docket number for this rulemaking. All comments, including any personal information you provide, are placed in the public docket without change and may be made available online at www.regulations.gov. Therefore, OSHA cautions commenters about submitting information they do not want made available to the public or submitting materials that contain personal information either about themselves or others, such as social security numbers, birth dates, etc. There is also a petition, and again, why I chose to talk about the Daily Wire. Daily Wire is holding a petition because they are the number one right now. They are holding a petition against the mandate ETS, and they're shooting for 1 million signs of the petition, and I don't see how many they have so far. But another thing you can do, sign that petition. Everything that you can find that you can fight this, do it. But the regulations.gov commenting, that's extremely, extremely important. Take action. That's what this is all about. And I'm going to end with this Bible verse. And I want you to dwell on this. Matthew 7:13 and 14. Enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. Dwell on it. Matthew 7:13 through 14. But that's all I got today. That's all I got. It's a heavy episode. A lot came at you real quick. Later today, you're going to hear Freedom Fridays as well. It's going to turn it around. It's going to be all positive. It's going to get you prepped for the weekend. So come back. Check us out. Go check out the website. Go check out the Patreon. There's some really, really cool stuff. A lot of personal stuff that's going to be on the Patreon for a really low price. It's just neat. I'm excited to be involved in that community. But that's it. That's all I got. My name is Logan. This is The Conservation Project, the podcast for the average Joe that still believes in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that we are still one nation under God.